Alright, Exodite here. So, today I want to talk about this thing I've heard in person, and I guess it's online. This idea that ninth edition Warhammer 40k is streamlined. It's not. It just simply is not. And I'll get into the reasons why. And to say that it is, it's a sign of something bigger in the community where a lot of people seem like they're really quick to just repeat the marketing slogans, and that's not really good, I don't think, as a community, because this is a product we pay for, and on some level, we have a stake in it, and it should be better. Um, because when I was exposed to the hobby like 10, 11 years ago now, I see all these miniatures. I'd never seen anything like that before. I saw Games Workshop store. I was in a mall back when they were still in malls. All these Space Marines, different armies, and as a kid, it's pretty amazing. And there was a sense of wonder, but you get older and you become more into the hobby and wargaming in general for me, and you just realize that the behavior of GW as a company is just not the best, and there's a lot of things they can improve. And with this new edition of 40k, which I like ninth edition, pretty playable. Doesn't seem like it has as many big like book purchases you have to do as some of the previous editions, and they've kind of helped with that with like the app, so that's good. And I almost wonder if it's a issue of people coming from sixth, seventh, eighth edition, where there was a lot of rules bloat and a lot of rules additions that has colored people's perspective going into ninth, because I have a third edition rule book right here on my shelf, and I have a fifth edition rule book, the mini rule book as well, and both of these rules are pretty streamlined in terms of how to do an action. You roll against your ballistic skill to hit, you roll to wound, and then you take saves. Pretty simple, three-step process. What they've done with uh, the current edition, okay, you have to roll to hit. Oh, spend a command point to reroll ones. Roll to wound. I haven't gone through all the stratagems. I'm sure there's a stratagem. Actually, just as I'm speaking now, there was a stratagem for, I believe, my Eldar. There's like a roll to wound, spend a command point type of thing. Okay, now roll for saves. Uh, Roll for, and then damage. And sometimes that's a roll because it's a D3. And then you have to keep track of all these multi-wound models in a lot of these units now. Whereas before, especially for troops, it's frankly a little ridiculous. I'm looking at the quick reference in 5th edition. Models with multiple wounds. You got Necrons, HQ, couple HQ choices. Scarab Swarm has a few. And then a few other elites have multiple wounds. Okay, let's look at orcs here. Same thing. Few HQ elites that get multiple wounds. Not that many multi-wound models. Tau, same thing. Anyway, I don't need to go through this whole book. You get the point. And so, okay, it's fine if you want to have multi-wound models, and this thing with the Space Marines getting multiple wounds of Primaris and even the regular Marines. Okay, fine, but you're just adding more stuff that you have to keep track of in the game. And my point here isn't to complain that you have to add more. That doesn't bother me, that if it's more complex per se. It's the idea that people have gotten in their head that this is like a streamlined game. It's not. It's really not. They've added a lot more to it. And if that was the direction that they were trying to sort of go with the game and play that up, I think they can actually make inroads into war gamers that have in general that have not been really interested in 40K because you know this might be uncomfortable to a lot of people in the 40K community, but it's really not well received among other war gamers. And you might say, okay, well, who cares what they think? And sure, it's a valid opinion, but in the larger ecosystem of war games, 40K is not that popular. And people that are pretty knowledgeable about writing war game rules and reading them, not fans of the way Games Workshop has written the rules. And it seems like this new edition, ninth, is a step in the right direction in some ways, and sort of refocusing some things. But the gameplay flow is not that more is not that much more simplified. It's really not, and they've added some stuff. And then the getting rid of universal special rules. I think I mentioned that in the last video. I think that's a big mistake in terms of actually streamlining the game, because that's something that it makes all of these unit abilities abundantly clear for everyone. Everybody knows everybody knew what Feel No Pain was, Tank Hunters, anyway, I could go on, but you get the idea. Now it's all divided up into these different books. You've got the codices, you've got Psychic Awakening books, you've got all these stratagems and detachments. And personally, as an Eldar player, I kind of like that they've added some of that stuff, because that means I can actually play a Bael'Tan army, or someone that does Sam Hain can actually play a Sam Hain army. So it's not my issue with the adding extra stuff. I think some of it's bloated. I think they could have focused things a bit more, but that's not the point of this short video. It's just to say that 40K is, in its current iteration, not that streamlined, but it's sort of a thing where the company has decided to dumb things down on some level, but then at the same time add a lot of these extras to make the game reach a wider audience. It's not so much done on the rules side per se as it is the lore, kind of making it a lot more kid-friendly is not exactly the right word, but just like less unique. It's more generic, and the focus on like these Primaris Space Marines, it's which I'm not a huge fan of. That's part of it, and then that sort of translates to the rules, because Primaris are killable in game. You can beat them, so I'm not complaining about that, but they are really tough. And the way they write the rules, it's very clear that on some level they're kind of the guys who are supposed to win and save the day, and that's fine. If they want to make the rules reflect the lore, okay, but you have to then make the other armies, I think, be more true to the lore as well. But they're not going to do that because Games Workshop is not really interested in really updating many of the Xenos armies. That's a future video I want to do, is just take a look at all these other factions that have not really gotten that many new kits. Eldar obviously haven't gotten a lot of updates, even though the range, in my opinion, is held up pretty well since the early 2000s, but I mean, they haven't gotten a lot in the way of new stuff. Tau, I'd have to look, but I don't think they've gotten much new stuff. You can make the case that, oh, well, Space Marines sell the best, so that's why they get the more kits. And I'm not the first to say what I'm about to say, but it's like, yeah, they probably sell the most because they're the most updated. So there's not a lot of interest in other factions when the ranges kind of stagnate and there's not like something new every so often and cool to get people interested in that faction and playing it. And it's a bigger issue, kind of getting off topic of the original subject of this video, but it's just seems like a lack of focus with Games Workshop and not really having a good strategic plan, and then having a lot of these conflicting sort of things where there's a lot of rules bloat, but then, it's the game is more streamlined is their sort of official tagline. Not really, it's not streamlined. So I think this video is going on long enough, kind of a rant. I think just to conclude, just in terms of presenting a concrete solution for the game and the company, is just like to think more holistically and think about, the setting as a whole setting, and not just, okay, let's add some of the Space Marines. Or, back in 5th edition, there was like a lot of just kind of seemingly random releases. A lot of armies that needed updates got them, but it's just like, okay, we're doing Space Wolves, now we're doing Grey Knights, now we're doing Dark Eldar. Now, could they have more behind the scenes like planning that I don't know about? Yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of vision, but it just doesn't really look that way, and it hasn't really, no pun intended, played out that way, it seems like, for the company in the last 10 years or so. So, it's ultimately, it's them saying one thing and doing another, and then the community in turn just repeating that message, even though it's not really clear, and it's not really like a credit to the community when these things get repeated, and then and they get repeated and they're not really that true or accurate, and it's just showing that there's like a lack of just critical thinking in the community and the hobby, the Games Workshop hobby in general. It's just not something I personally have seen in other, like in the historical war games. But it is what it is. And Games Workshop, at the end of the day, is still the biggest war game company by market share. And they'll probably stay that way for quite some time. So, anyway, thanks for listening and watching. And I will have a new video soon.